Welcome to Women Ending War, the podcast where Palestinian and Israeli women talk about partnerships for peace, real solutions, and ideas for crafting a new world.
It's where we express our pain, anger, dreams, creativity, and vision, where hope is a conscious choice.
معاكم أميرة مسلم.
I'm Elana Stockman. Thanks for joining us.
Today we have with us a great woman, a great partner, a great friend and a colleague. Her name is Eszter Korányi. She's part of Combatants for Peace, a great organization that has been in the field for so long already. And we want to listen more about it, what they do, what their vision, how they can do it actually in this challenging time where we said it in other podcasts and other we said that it seems that it's impossible, that it's not going to work anymore, the work that is done by Israelis and Palestinians together. But Eszter is a live proof that it's still working and it can work. And yes, so please go ahead, Eszter, and introduce yourself and tell us more.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. And indeed, it feels like as Amira mentioned before, like if we were sitting in a coffee shop, which we aren't. Also, it's very foggy and rainy outside, so it's actually probably better. So I'm Eszter. I was born and raised in Hungary, and I came to Israel in 2013, not knowing that I was going to stay. I eventually found my partner, who became my husband and father of our two kids, who lives in Jerusalem and didn't want to go anywhere else. So it was clear that, okay, I was already around, so I'm the one staying. And at that point, I was already into figuring out what's happening here, the conflict, Palestinians, Israelis, the separation wall, Intifada, all this. Like I was already in the journey of trying to understand more, and it was clear for me that if I take the decision in my personal life to stay in this land, then I don't want to take my right as a Jewish person, that I can just, stay here, have full citizenship and all the rights that in a kind of functioning democracy in other parts of the world someone can have, and other people who are here for generations and also live together with me in this land don't have the same. So I promise myself that I will find a way to do something in order to make this place equal and free for everyone, and peaceful as well, inshallah.
Yes.
And that's when, like, I already knew Combatants for Peace. I met Suleiman Khatib, and I went on some tours. I saw the first documentary movie, Disturbing the Peace, that came out in 2016. Now we actually have another one. There is Another Way, which I recommend to everyone to watch. Now it's only screenings, and it will be also on the internet at some point, like live stream.
And there's also the book, Perinon.
And there is also the book Paragon, but that came later. Then I was already involved in Combatants for Peace. There is also a book, Khatib and Penina Schwarzberg in this place together, which is also a great read. So, yeah, there is a lot to read about Combatants for Peace, luckily, and also about some of the people involved in the movement. So I already knew Combatants for Peace, and then Suli called me one day and said, like, hey, there is this little job, maybe you are free, come for an interview, let's see. That was in August 2017. And then I started as project manager, really like 10 hours a week or something. I did a lot of things as being one of the first staff members, because it's essentially a movement and most of the people are activists and volunteers, and there is a growing staff also holding this whole thing together. um, 8.5 years ago, I was really probably the first real employed person, and in the last 2 years I'm the Israeli co-director together with Rana Salman, who is the Palestinian co-director. And yeah, that's me, I think, as introduction.
And you know, one thing, Esther, maybe I'm not sure if you know or not, but there is something in common between me and you for Combatants for Peace. Actually, Combatants for Peace, when they started the whole thing, the whole idea, and it was just an idea, they met the Israelis and the Palestinian founders and group. They met one day in Ramallah, in near Ramallah, like Kufr Aqab, Ramallah area, and they met for this like whole conference of like 3 days. And I was called as a young little girl to translate for them. So I knew Combatants for Peace since they really started really, really long time ago. I think 2007, 6, around that time. And I was translating for them. And I didn't know that this idea and these group of men and women who are like, who refuse to hold weapons anymore and sit together and say there is another way, not with violence, not with weapons, but to sit and talk and challenge each other and listen and find solutions. I didn't know that it will become a big organization that now has lots of people, lots of volunteers. When like I know from Combatants for Peace, and I look at the news, and I am part of some of the marches when they call for a march for freedom or a march for protesting anything about ending the occupation and so on. They have hundreds of people following them. So from one group of men sitting in a conference room in a hotel near Ramallah to a big organization that have now hundreds of people. So, kol hakavod.
Wow, no, I didn't know. That's amazing. And actually, this it started like they already started the first meetings in 2005, but the name and the official establishment of the group was in 2006. So we will celebrate our 20th year this year. We will,
Wow, that's
yeah,
that's a good accomplishment. That's really
yeah.
impressive.
Invite me. I was the translator for you 20 years ago.
I will. After I finish this talk, I will go to Suli, and that will be the first thing I will tell him to remember, and to Rana as well.
That's such a great
Um,
story. That's an amazing story, Amira. I mean,
yeah,
you
and yeah. So in like we will do all sorts of things throughout the year, but our peak event will be in November 2026. Hopefully, we will do one full week of olive harvest with different communities that we work with, and also like an event which will have an exhibition and talks and music. We are still figuring it out, but
Perfect.
November might also be elections in Israel. It's
we
probably,
hope it's going to be after the elections.
and then we'll be
Hopefully,
celebrating because there'll be new
way
people.
better news than what we
Maybe,
have now.
maybe there'll be something to like say, okay,
Yeah,
some light at the end of the tunnel, maybe.
hopefully.
Sorry to deflect. Yes, 20th anniversary sounds like an amazing thing. November, week of olive harvest and events. Yes, sounds great. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing now? Like, what is the organization mostly focusing on these days?
Yeah, so as Amira was mentioning, like our core is to do binational fieldwork and actions that challenge the occupation in order to one day end the occupation and bring collective liberation for everyone. And also, it's solidarity and support for Palestinian communities, farmers who do sumud. They stick to the land. They handle violence by the army and by settlers every day. So it's, of course, we can't be with them all the time, but we really find it important to organize binational groups to go and support them. We are the only organization that does binational actions on the field. We do have Israeli activists who do like the classic protective presence in places where it's too dangerous for Palestinians to go because they would be, exposed to the same harassment and violence and arrests by soldiers and by settlers as the communities they want to protect. There are still places where we can do olive harvest together, where we can clean water tunnels for shepherd communities who collect rainwater, do simple construction work. So that's the key element of what we do. Recently, we also started to do binational demonstrations in Area C, so in places in the West Bank in Palestine where both Jewish Israelis and Palestinians can reach. We always bring a topic which is current. We started this during the war in Gaza, so it was obviously to raise our voices against the war, against killing of children, killing of journalists, the hunger when it was in its peak, and the last demonstrations were about settler violence, ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. In December, we had against the planned death penalty law. So we always pick something. We organize it once a month. During the war, we had 2 months when we were there every week. And then we realized that we can't keep up this pace for so long. So now it's once a month, these joint demonstrations and field work according to what's needed on the ground. Now we are in a period when we support communities with planting trees or doing other agricultural work, like cleaning also the land so they can plant the trees later on. So that's the fieldwork element. And
What
then
are
we
you
have
seeing? Like, are you seeing in the field work? Like, what are you witnessing? Do you see things like changing, evolving? Amira talks a lot about the things that she has seen and witnessed. So, what are you seeing in the field work?
Somehow the demonstrations, and I knock on wood, I think they kind of surprise the occupation because mostly they let us do it. It's like 1 hour, 1.5 hour. Usually of course, we are always nonviolent. It's very important to say. In the demonstrations itself, we just stand there holding signs. Usually it's without megaphones. Sometimes it is, but usually it's a very, very like calm vigil, I would even say. And sometimes after 45 minutes, the army comes and says, okay, it's closed military zone, you have to go. But still, we were there for 45 minutes. Still, there are pictures showing signs in 3 languages with women in hijab and with the Jewish head cover and whoever, a very diverse group standing there. So it reaches the aim, I would say, even if after 45 minutes we have to go because we don't want to endanger anyone.
And also, Elana, I want to add to Esther an example that I would like to talk about because I'm proud
Yes.
of it and I'm proud of this partnership that happened in the past. Remember, I told you in other podcasts that my ex-husband's family were attacked by settlers in their own land in Beit Jala in Al Makhrur, and when I arrived to the scene, my ex-husband was arrested and taken away from his own land, which he has papers for, and then I was left alone with my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law, facing all these like young settlers, armed settlers, and of course the IOF and the police, the Israeli police. They were like protecting them and us. We were not protected, though my in-laws are Arab Israelis, so they have the Israeli passport. So what I did back then, I didn't have any option in front of me because like the church would not help, the city will not help. So I called for protective presence, and I reached out. The first one I reached out was Sulaiman Al-Khatib, who's a part and one of the co-founders of Combatants for Peace. And I told him, hey, listen, Suli, I really need protective presence. And they responded the call. In like 2-3 hours, I had many other organizations, but like the ones who were the most, who came in like numbers, were Combatants for Peace, and they stayed with us there for more than 35 days, protesting our land, confiscation, and settler, were sitting in our land while we were like thrown out, and they were there with us 24/7, sleeping with us in a tent, protesting, marching non-violently to our land, telling the whole world, like, listen, this is our land, we have papers, and these people are coming, to take it away. And they were there 24/7. Actually, they were one of the main
Wow.
organizer for the whole 35 days, and I thank them for this. And for this specific reason, and for their presence, and other, for also organizations, Israelis, mostly Israelis actually, we were able to shed the light on our land, and like people from all around the world knew about what does it mean to be, attacked by settlers, what does it mean for the state to back up these actions, and so on. And finally we were able to kick the settlers out and return our land. So now our land is empty from settlers, we have ownership over it, we can go back to it anytime. And I thank all these organizations, and especially Combatants for Peace, for being with us there. Because without them, we couldn't do it by ourselves. They would come and just arrest us or accuse us of doing anything, and like we'll be in jail. But because of their presence, we were able to win this case. And this is the first time in Palestine's history where we were able to kick the settlers out.
Wow. And Amira, your family has been in Bethlehem and Beit Jala for like generations, right? Your grandfather was the mayor of Bethlehem. Is that right? Do I remember that right?
Yes, my grandfather Ayub Musallam was the mayor of Bethlehem, and my dad and him also were able to go back and trace our family tree, and we were able to go back to Musallam family in Bethlehem, to the archive in Bethlehem, to year 1600. And then we
Wow.
couldn't go further back because the church wouldn't allow us to go back. But at least we know that we're like Bethlehemite, like we're
Wow.
from there.
Seriously.
Yes,
Seriously. Like those are some serious roots. Those are
yes.
some really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really lovely. I mean, what you're saying about the Combatants for Peace. I also was I was at a Combatant for Peace protest about 2 weeks ago, or 2-3 weeks ago, and it was the last one at Ras Al Uje before the last family left. It was like a couple of days before the last family left. It was mostly your event, wasn't it? It was like a lot of organizations there.
It was a cooperation. Like, it's also some of the things that changed since already, like 7th of October for sure, but also when this government came into power already nearly 4 years ago. I don't know how we still have to bear with them, but that we in the field of peace and human rights organizations understood that we have to cooperate. So we cooperate in everything: advocacy, field work. Also, this in Al Uja, it was organized by looking into the occupation into the eye, which is the grassroots group that they do protective presence mostly around Uja, and Rabbis for Human Rights, Peace Now.
UCPIP.
Mhm.
Yeah.
UCPIP, because I was the one.
So yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
right. Yeah, so it was a big cooperation, but we had quite a lot of activists going there, and also, yeah, Mira, of course, Mahrour is like, I remember we had a team meeting here in the Bajala office. We have two offices, one in Tel Aviv and one in Bajala. I'm in Bajala today, and we were sitting, and Suli was like, hey guys, I just got this call. I think we have to go now and check out the place, and we will understand what we do. And this was in July 2024.
Yes.
So we were paralyzed for, like, because 7th of October happened just before the olive harvest season started, so we couldn't do olive harvest. And then still for the for the tree planting season, it was just so much the beginning of the war that we couldn't really do anything. Also, Palestinian cities were still basically under siege, even in January, February 2024 in the beginning. So we were like trying to figure out how we can go back to the field. We did one demonstration close to Jericho in the Almog Junction in February 2024. And this was also like a very clear call to us, like, okay, it doesn't matter. We go and we see how it's going to work now with the war and with everything that we have to face. And yeah, as you say, Amira, it's one of the struggles that actually succeeded. So it gave also us as a movement a lot of energy and a lot of power to continue our work. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Wow.
Yeah, and things. I mean, there is ceasefire, and somehow, like, it was of course a relief for us. But then all the ethnic cleansing happening in the West Bank, kind of the feeling that whatever they couldn't manage to destroy in Gaza, now they try to destroy in the West Bank. It's terrible. Like we were planning to have so many olive harvests, and eventually we managed to have one this year. With the planting, it seems a little bit better, but we also hear from other organizations that they go plant trees and then settlers or the army comes the day after and they just destroy the whole thing.
Yeah.
So like what's happening now in Palestine, West Bank, it's very, very, very difficult. Like, Amira, you know better than I do, but
Can we talk a little bit about what you mean when you say? Because also Amira has said this, and we've heard it elsewhere, that what the West Bank is turning into Gaza, like all the things that happen in Gaza are now coming to the West Bank. You explain a little bit.
I like to quote B'Tselem. They call it the gazification of the West Bank.
Gazification
The
of the West Bank.
gazification of the West Bank. Even if it's a different manner on how they do it, like it's not like mass bombing and so on, but it is like mass
Like what?
displacement. And
Can you explain that a little? Can you explain what that looks like in real terms? Like what that is?
Esther?
Me. Okay, I always feel strange to talk about the West Bank when there is someone Palestinian present in the conversation. But I will just say that we have also members from Tulkarem and Kalkilia. And actually one of the things that like shouldn't be at all taken for granted, that these people still come to binational activities. Even the group from Kalkilia, we haven't seen them for very long, and now they came to the north of the Jordan Valley when we supported the communities there to clean water tunnels. So I find it like very amazing that they still have trust in any Israeli, even though they've been involved with the movement for so long. But their houses are being destroyed. Whole streets are being just demolished especially in the refugee camps in Tulkarem, Jenin, and we have members who are displaced, and they now they have to rent some place somewhere else, and no one helps them. No one will give back their house. Some of their family members, they just try to go back to the refugee camp in Tulkarem to save some of their belongings before the army comes with the bulldozers and destroys everything, and they were arrested. So, it's coming everywhere, to Daesh refugee camp next to Beit Lechem, El Khader recently. where we have a lot of our activists, which is a village next to Bethlehem, but it's area A and B. So the army shouldn't do anything there, and they just go and destroy houses.
Yeah.
So what's like very obvious for the communities that are in the Jordan Valley, smaller shepherding communities, as we saw very sadly with Ras Al Uja, that they just had to leave. When was it? When the last family left a week ago. So it's coming to the bigger cities, and basically, what we are trying to do is at least call the attention of the world, to talk about it on our social networks, to journalists, so that at least if someone listens somewhere, they know that this is also going on.
You know, Elana, just adding to Esther about like Bethlehem district, because I'm from Bethlehem, it really became, we always have been saying since I was a little girl, it's an open air prison. Now it is really an open air prison. Like you really don't have any space outside the borders of not even the district, but like the city itself. Like in Bethlehem, we are just surrounded with the separation wall, with the apartheid wall. We're surrounded with settlements. And like the other day, I was passing by Al Khader, Esther, and I was shocked. Just like in few months, you have already a new outpost and a continuation of building of the biggest, one of the biggest settlements in that area, and it's just eating all the green area that was left for us to enjoy. You know, on a weekend to take my son for a picnic. Now I can't even go there because settlers are attacking and the settlements are expanding and building. They will end up like building on top of us. You know, it's just, I feel like we will end up like Hebron, the old city, where like on the first floor we live as Palestinians, and on the second floor there are Jewish Israeli settlers who are, you know, just took over the area. And it's scaring me to death. Like really, it's scary because like no other place to go now. We're stuck in an open air prison. It's literally an
Yeah.
open air prison.
Can we talk about Hebron for a second? Because Hebron is particularly bad, right? There's a whole, like, they can't move. The community in Hebron, there's like 35,000 Palestinians in Hebron and 300 Jews and dozens of army out, like, and they really can't move. They can't go out. They can't drive. But you talked about this also, Amira, about the issue of like driving and you can't leave and restrictions on movement. Esther, what do you see? What do you see in all these? Do you go to places like Hebron?
For Hebron, I think you meant age one, because like Hebron itself as the city is much bigger than 35,000, but those are the ones who are in the so-called Israeli part of Hebron, which is obviously not the Israeli part because, as you say, like there are so few settlers and so many Palestinians who just suffer from their presence. We don't particularly do anything in Hebron because as we are a binational organization and officially Jewish Israelis are not allowed into Area A, so we mostly do our activities in Area C, so more the rural parts of the West Bank where both our people are allowed to be. We have members from Hebron as well, and it's not our main focus at the moment, South Hebron Hills, because there are so many activist groups doing protective presence there. But of course, we're also connected. We have activists who wear a lot of hats and are also very much involved with the South Hebron Hills. And last week there was a pogrom there. Like really, they burned the settlers while army and police is watching. They burned 3 villages, hurted I don't know how many people, stole hundreds of livestock. It was terrible, and we were receiving live all the movies, everything, and we tried to call the mainstream media's attention, like Beyond Haaretz and Telegram, and all the channels that we follow, but we didn't manage. We didn't it didn't make it to Ynet because it just became the normal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but also, Esther, you have a really good program that I don't know how often you do it, but I remember like last year you had like this whole group who are internationals and they go on tour in all like the West Bank, Israel and Palestine, and they learn. So they do go to Hebron and they do go
Yeah,
to all these areas that are not accessible to the Israeli team members, but at least to those foreigners who have like foreigner nationalities, and they do come and they do learn about the status quo, and then they go back to their countries, whoever whatever they are working in, or what they do advocacy and fundraising and all of this. So it's important also what you do, even if it's not like a main thing that you do, but it's very important to bring people from abroad who don't have any idea, or maybe they know about Palestine, Israel in the news or on social media, but when they come, they are like shocked on how it is really like worse than even looking at an Instagram post. It's really on the ground. It's like really horrible, horrifying, and scary.
yeah, yeah. It's also like also in as part of the 20th year commemoration, we will have international groups like our friends from the US and a lot of countries from Europe that will come. And beyond being with us, of course, we will offer them to go on tours with other groups, organizations, tour guides, meeting the locals, because as you say, especially in this new era of very, very chaotic foreign diplomacy and Trump, and I don't know, we find it very, very important to bring our message from bottom up to the politicians, whoever wants to meet us, to
Yeah.
influence, to tell the stories also from the ground, and with the hope, as we saw a little bit with the European Union last summer, when the starvation and the war in Gaza was reaching one of its worst moments. And then, because we, as the peace camp, as human rights organizations, were conveying the message of what's really happening, or at least whatever we can know that it's happening in Gaza, I think it made an effect on decision makers in the EU to
Yeah.
consider to stop the economic agreements with Israel, and then eventually they also did allow some food in, and ceasefire also happened. Not only because of this, it was also Trump, but partly.
Yes.
Can
And
we go
actually,
back
and I'm
to
curious, Elana, to ask Esther to explain more about how it is even possible to work together as Israelis and Palestinians in the midst of everything that we are going through, and the loss of trust,
yes.
and yeah, everything that we are seeing and
Yeah.
experiencing as Palestinians also. How is it possible, and how do you do it in Combatants for Peace? I know in other organizations how they do it, but like I really would like to hear about
Yeah.
Combatants for Peace.
And I would just to add to that, that I don't take for granted ever anytime like a Palestinian, like you know, Mira, is willing to sit with me and talk to me as equals and as friends and as sisters. We sometimes say, you know, I don't take that for granted at all. You know, if a Palestinian comes to me and is like really angry at me and doesn't trust me and doesn't believe me, and I understand that. I really understand that. So, like the fact that we're ever able to sit together, or like what we did in Paris in June, and all these different forums, it's like it's it's a blessing, and I'm so grateful for that. So yeah, just echoing Amira's sentiment.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, there is a heating on, and my throat it doesn't like it looks like. Yeah, so how do we do this? I think it's really thanks to the 20 years experience that our founders have, and all the practices of overcoming the mistrust, fear, anger, all everything that it's very naturally there from both sides, I would say, because we just really don't know each other. Like if someone doesn't actively look for getting to know the other, as we call it, then really all those feelings are there. But because we have all these amazing people to learn from who've been practicing nonviolent communication, nonviolent joint resistance for so long, and also this is what happened actually already on the 7th of October, that a little core group of our funders and key activists just started to call each other, also check upon each other if they are fine. And also saying like, hey, okay, something terrible is happening, like with all the shock. And we also didn't know what exactly, as no one really knew. But it was clear that what's happening, what Hamas is doing in the kibbutzim next to Gaza is something terrible. And we all know how it works. So we all knew that Gaza will also have something terrible happening. And they made the decision already on the 7th of October that, okay, no matter what, we have to live this through. We have to make it work. And the first conversations we had on Zoom were very, very difficult. A lot of people very angry, also like denying the terrible war crimes that Hamas did. For me as a woman, hearing someone saying that there was no rape because they are Muslims and Muslims don't rape women, I was like, okay, wow. But then we also started to ask why, and then we understood that the information that Palestinians get and the information that we get, it's so different, and that maybe the denial doesn't come because of really this is what this person thinks and could investigate himself. He can't, as no one can. And then we understood that the media is very biased. Of course, there is cultural difference. Of course, it's always harder to see what our own group does than when it comes to violence, when what the others do. So we were really trying to understand the psychology behind it. And I think because we have all this experience, this is what helped us to accept and to hear the other and to go beyond even the words that they say. And also because we have at least there is a core group who have a lot of joint experience, friendship, the joint struggle that we are in, all the field work we do together, all the educational work that we do together. So eventually this was stronger than the powers that wanted to keep us aside.
It's so interesting that you mentioned the media. I wanted to ask you about before. Also, you also mentioned the media, that when you were trying to get Israeli media to see you, that the Ynet didn't even care. Like they didn't. The idea of covering the Israeli pogroms on Palestinian villages wasn't even a thing. So that's something that we come up against a lot. We talk about this a lot, that there's such a divide in the media and what people are seeing. And also because the Israeli media in particular is so censored, basically. The media is completely censored and completely there to promote one narrative, one BBS narrative about what's really happening and what's doing what to whom and what's happening. So how do you see, has that affected you? Like, I mean, you told that one story about that they weren't interested in talking about the violence from last weekend. How else? Like, what are your experiences with media and trying to get some kind of media attention?
Yeah, so as you say, especially since the 7th of October, especially because we are one of the very few groups that are binational joint and we continue to work together, we continue to do things on the ground together even. The foreign media is very, very interested in us, which is great. The also Palestinian media, by the way, not for everything, not for the educational work that we do or the joint Memorial Day ceremony that we do together with parents. circle. Also, we have a joint Nakba ceremony, but because it's together with Israelis, it's a bit controversial for Palestinian media to report on. But everything that we do on the field is actually covered even by the PA main channels time to time. And from Bethlehem, we have Bethlehem 2000 radio station that come and cover our activities. Israeli media is much more difficult. Like, of course, we have the Independent, we have Haaretz, and we have the Sikha Mekomit or the Plus 972 magazine, the English edition of it that do cover also what we do. The Memorial Day ceremony usually makes it to the headlines on mainstream Israeli media, and surprisingly, the coverage is usually quite good. I mean, like quite just telling what we actually do there without labeling it something negative. But all the rest is very, very rare. It's very, very difficult to break through this wall of protecting Israel's mainstream ideas and strategies. Like, I think it's not really us, but like the camp in general, the only thing that made it to really headlines in mainstream media was when settlers also started to attack soldiers. That was like
That's okay. That's bad, right? It's like everything else is okay, but don't touch the soldiers.
that's the red line, yeah. And then, because they talk about that, so where do these settlers come? What do they do otherwise? Are they violent in general? So then they also talk about the Palestinian communities that are suffering, but it really comes from that angle.
Yeah. Okay. So what are your hopes now, like in this coming year? And you have this, your 20-year anniversary, and hopefully, maybe some. I mean, what do you have any sources of hope?
Yeah, I think our group is a huge source of hope. Like, I feel very, very blessed that I have these partners, that we do things together, and we always find, like, however difficult it is, we always find also a place where we acknowledge each other and we listen to each other. So it's not only like going out on the field and doing all the struggle and then going home and that's it. Like, we find it very important to sustain the community that we are building, because we know that only together we can make really a change. We always say that we also embody the change that we want to see and that we believe that it's possible to create it. So when we are together physically, no matter if it's office work or doing the field work or doing educational work, it always gives a lot of energy, because we see that, okay, there is a bridge and we are the ones building the bridge. So that gives me a lot of hope that eventually the day will come when this will be recognized also by the majority of people, because eventually everyone wants to live in peace. Like, it's a very small minority who wants the opposite, who wants violence to go on. So
that's what Amira was just saying before.
Yeah. And I hope that we will have our ceremonies, the Memorial Day ceremony and the Nakba Day ceremony, watched by as many people as possible, and that they will also get strength and inspiration to join the struggle, join us, join other groups which are available on the ground. So that's also something I wish for. It's already coming up, like Memorial Day is 20th of April and the Nakba ceremony is 15th of May. So that's like the first part of the year. And then we will focus on the 20th year and on hopefully doing as much field work as we can.
Keep us posted.
Yeah, and also the young people who join us through educational programs, through fieldwork, through the demonstrations. It's always very, very good to see that there is a new generation joining and interested and who want to take part in what we do.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Esther.
Some hope after our hopeless conversations before, Elana. But this is like really, I'm so glad to hear that, and I'm so happy, that we, Esther, you are with us today, and you told us a little bit of hopeful stuff. And yes, and as I said it before, Elana, we cannot, and we don't have the privilege even to lose hope. So
Right.
that's an example of, if
Right.
you really want to see a change, if you really don't know what to do, meet combatants for peace. Listen, you don't have to join them, but at least listen how they did it for the past 20 years, how even with everything horrible around us, they still made it through, and especially after the 7th of October. So with all the challenges. So yeah, thank you, Esther. Thank you for Combatants for Peace. Thank you for everyone over there. And
Thank you.
thank you, Elana,
Yes.
also for...
Thanks for listening to Women Ending War. If you want to help create change, you should join us.
Subscribe, like, comment, or share. Tell your friends about us. Talk about it. Be part of the solution.
Thanks and see you next time.